all of us. For anyone that on the staff here, on the planning commission, make sure you get good notes of. Okay, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. So everyone's here tonight with the exception of Leah, who called me earlier. She was ill, so she won't be here this evening. I have a motion to accept the agenda. Second by Tom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. The July 18th, 2024 meeting minutes. I didn't have any additional comments or changes.
Neither did I.
You're good, Cliff. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from July 18th?
So moved.
Seconded by Cliff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting minutes are approved. Now we'd like to open the meeting up for public comment. So if anyone would like to, before we get the report from the Beckett and Radar, is there any public comment? Sure. Would you mind staying to the speaker and let's, so we can open up some public comment during the presentation, but I'd like to be able for it to be a free flow. So if you've got something that you'd like to state now, I suggest you come up and make your comments.
Good evening. My name is Mike Van Gore, resident of the township on Spruce Run Drive. Thank you for the opportunity. I know it's been a long time. We had the open house on November 2, and at this point, we're just a couple days shy of 10 full months to get to this point. And so I know we had a couple meetings that were canceled, some that were out of everybody's control, but I hope that we can kind of move readily forward from here on out. I had sent an email in before the June 6th meeting, and I thought I'd just read a couple comments from that. Just to reiterate some of my thoughts. The mixed-use zoning district proposed to be north of I-94 at Old US 12 Pierce Road is missing from the description on page 7. I believe this should be included in the description, or if not, the MU district should be removed from the map in that area. There's also a conflict in the language of the future land use document. The first item under the summary of changes on page 1 states that the mixed use land use category does not include industrial zones nor permit industrial uses. However, the last item under the appropriate uses within the mixed use land use on page 7 states light industrial uses are permitted only when they are part of a mixed use project. I believe this needs to be stricken from the appropriate uses list, as this could be exploited with a development that consists of 95% industrial use with a 5% commercial use and still be considered a mixed use project. If industrial is not allowed, that means all industrial. Also, the asterisk item regarding prohibiting any outdoor storage needs to be included as part of the appropriate uses and not as a footnote. In addition, I would like an explanation why the OAR district does not list the MU district under most compatible zoning districts on page 4 and vice versa on page 7. If they're not compatible, why are these districts proposed to be adjacent to one another? And finally, there's a discrepancy between the future land use FLU map included with the future land use plan and the standalone FLU map, specifically in the area proposed for the mixed use zone north of I-94 at Pierce Road. I believe this needs to be further clarified. And further, I would propose that there be no mixed use development in the wetland areas identified on the map. This will provide a land buffer between any mixed use development and Letts Creek, which is a part of the Mill Creek Creekshed, which drains into the Huron River watershed. I believe that protecting our natural resources that we have here should be paramount in whatever land use map we propose moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could forward a copy of those to Scott Pacheco, your comments there just again tonight?
Sure.
If you haven't written out, I think you do. So
All right.
that'd be useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Townsend, I believe.
Hi, Renee Townsend. I'm a resident on Spruce Run Drive. I have a bunch of points. Mike did touch on several of them, so I will try to not repeat. I agree with what he said. But I wrote everything down so I could try to be quicker because I know there's a time limit, so I'm going to read. So after reading the future land use plan, it's clear that to me that this is a very early first draft, despite the fact that it took 7 months. The community engagement summary seems to be a fairly thorough description of the results of the survey and the open house, though it is a summary, so we can't actually see the comments that were made or the word clouds, et cetera, that were done. And it's not clear if resident correspondence was included here. I know I wrote in because I was unable to attend the open house. And I know others that did it as well, so it would be good to know that they looked at our comments. And there were several typos or areas that looked like maybe it was kind of cut and pasted into a template. There was one area that was discussing water and sewer around I-54. So then I had to kind of figure out, did they mean I-94 or M-52? It was just kind of confusing. As for the plan itself, I have many concerns. It states in the overview that the requirement to revisit the master plan every 5 years is to ensure that the future land use categories and placements are aligned to community preferences, which is good. I couldn't agree more with this guidance. This plan does not come close to accomplishing that. When you look at the results of the surveys that have been done, this master plan draft is largely disconnected from those preferences. In the mixed use, what Mike mentioned, I had here as well. The description of mixed use designation very clearly states, both in this draft and the 2017 master plan, that it is focused on the south side of 9452 interchange and on the St. Louis Center campus. Somehow it shows up on Pierce Road. To be very clear, because I don't know where the Beckett and Rader consultants are from, Pierce Road is not south of I-94 M52 interchange, nor is it on the St. Louis campus. I have no idea why it was plopped there in 2017. I see that they removed the mixed use designation north of the creek, which is great, but it makes absolutely no sense to keep it south of the creek to me. Which kind of brings me to another concern. A change made, they indicated that all their changes were highlighted in yellow. This change was not highlighted in yellow. They added 2 words to a sentence, an important sentence from the 2017 master plan. As written then, it states regarding the mixed use designation, areas planned for this designation shall have direct or indirect via access roads, access to M52, and Old US 12. The 2 words added at the end of that sentence are when possible. Those words basically negate that sentence because when it isn't possible, somebody's just going to do what they want or try to do what they want. The fact that this is not highlighted as a change is confusing as best. The only way to access Old 12 from this property, as far as I can see, would be a road or driveway off the entrance ramp to westbound I-94. I can't see another spot where it could go. And I don't think that's allowed. One other thing on that is that the 2017 master plan and this draft state that the zoning district most appropriate for mixed use is general commercial. Others could be highway commercial, multifamily residential, business park, and industrial, but Pierce Road again is none of these. I wonder why it is being called the Pierce Road Potential Development Area. And I realize they're saying potential, but the 2008 master plan, and I wonder if anyone from Beckett and Rader actually read the 2008 master plan to know how we got where we are. The 2008 master plan told us at least 7 times that the only reason that sewer and water was run down Pierce Road was to get to the lakes area. to solve a public health issue, and that Pierce Road was not intended for development, and the fact that water and sewer are there should not be a reason to develop the area. Fast forward to the 2017 master plan, all of that is gone, and we have mixed use in a farm field. History is important, and it's being forgotten and or ignored here. Finally, as Mike stated, we've got Letts Creek wetlands and a wellhead protection area on that land, which common sense and the 2017 master plan tell us should be protected. If you review the summary of community engagement and the open house video, it's very clear, and they have stated these facts in the summary, that the residents overwhelmingly in some cases want a rural agricultural township with recreation and preservation opportunities. 83.6% of residents want ag and low-density residential in the township, with people stating specifically 2-acre minimums, but larger lots preferred, compared to 4% wanting office expanded, or 11.6% wanting ADUs. The OAR area gives us the 2-acre minimums, but in the north part of the township, the LDR states 1 or 2-acre parcels. How many residents said they wanted smaller lot sizes? I didn't see any. You listened to 11.6% of people who wanted ADUs expanded. Those seem to be in most areas now, but not to 83.6% who want the township kept rural. Why? In addition, you've changed a previously LDR area north of the city at M52 and Werkner to mixed use and general commercial. This could be a disaster down the road if Robin Hills Farm moves out and a big box store can move in. Over 40% of residents did not want retail, office, or industrial, approaching 50% on that one, expanded anywhere in the township. Again, why? Who are you listening to here? As I said, many things are not aligned with community preferences. And finally, a comment regarding the emails that I received via a FOIA request. Out of 306 emails between board and planning commission members and township employees, current and former, and Beckett and Rader, I only saw Mike Van Buren, chair of the planning commission, on maybe 3 emails. And these were regarding scheduling the joint meeting. So after the draft was completed, he's the chair of the planning commission. He should have been at least CC'd to keep him in the loop while the draft was in progress, don't you think? It seems odd. The supervisor has told us multiple times that the master plan review is a planning commission driven process in which the board has no involvement other than the final approval of the document. The supervisor herself was on almost every email. Why, if the board has no involvement? Confusing. Also, some of the emails made it clear that our former zoning administrator, who we were assured would only have an administrative role in this after making disparaging remarks about residents, was at least trying to influence the process. Disappointing, to say the least. In my opinion, we have spent a lot of time and money to review and revise this important document to ensure that our beautiful township moves into the future in a way that is consistent with resident desires, with current land usage in the area, and with preserving rural character. What we have here does nothing of those things. My hope is that the Planning Commission sees that this was not handled well. There is a clear disconnect between the results from the surveys and what Beckett and Rader has brought forth in the draft. If we need to start over to get this right, so be it. Let's not just ram something through because this board or this consulting firm wants to be done with it. There will be a new board seated soon. Please, let's just do this the right way. It's too important not to.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the public? Yes, if you'd like to address.
Hello, Lois Whiteman. I'm a resident. I'd like to speak just to the Pierce Road area that's designated mixed use, land use.
They say that that includes commercial office and high-density residential. And it could include more intensive commercial business if you look at page 7 of 10 on the draft. They also say it's focused, this mixed use is focused on the south side of 94 and 52 interchange within the urban area boundary. Later on that page, they say that they're going to remove the office/residential use. I find this language confusing and contradictory. Now, unfortunately, on the map, it shows that there's a mixed-use area on Pierce Road between north of US 12 and south of Letts Creek. This is not within an urban area boundary at all. And it says that one of the things that's encouraged is use of high-density residential, commercial, and office. None of these uses are consistent with the Pierce Road area. So the inconsistencies and the contradictory information, I think, is very problematic. And the language is vague, and I'm just reserving my comments to the mixed-use designation on Pierce Road. There are other problems, as have been noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I did want to add that I appreciated the good summary of what they said was input from the community and how they spelled all that out at the beginning. But I don't think a lot of that was reflected in the draft that followed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. Would anyone else like to address in the public comment? Rod, do you like to go ahead? And we got a couple behind you.
Fred Branham, Sylvan Township. I want to say I think it's wrong that you guys want to constrain 5-generation farmers around here. You've taken away from the use on south of 52 and Pierce Road both. And Pierce Road has water and sewer running down it, which could benefit everybody in the township. South of 94, I don't know why that's done as 2 acres. I thought the farmers would be here tonight to stand up for themselves, but they didn't. So I will. And I just think it's wrong that you guys that have lived here 20 years or whatever want to take away these farmers' retirement that they've worked 5 generations for. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Rod. Yep, go ahead.
Charlie Cadam with Swisher Commercial. I represent the landowners in section 15 and in section 24. Both of the mixed use areas, believe the township received letters from the property owners of both east and west of I-9 of Pierce Road, north of 94 and that mixed use area designation, in wanting to keep something for future use. They liked the mixed use plan for their future. It's very, very poor farmland, not a very, it's just very poor land. We have had applications before the Planning Commission for a couple of different mixed uses. One, we were turned down for a residential use because we didn't include a mixed use for that zoning use. I agree that, the wetlands in the creek need to be protected. And I believe that the reason why the master plan changed and added that area was because the water and sewer is down Pierce Road and the township was looking for more utilization of the system that is in place. And that was why I believe that was changed, whether it was whether that was communicated in their plan or not. I believe that was the main reason why. When you look at the property south of I-94 and the mixed use designation, you've got 2 areas that are accepted out and look like spot zoning. Not sure why that is there. I think it should be consistent, because you have a piece on the east side that is currently green, that should be with the mixed use as well as the same with the piece that borders 94 up to the price of proving grounds. So the letters from these owners were received by the township in support of continuing to keep their property for some type of flexibility rather than just farmland, because like Rod was saying, they've been here for generations. It's poor farmland, and they're looking to do something with the property so that they can sell it.
Okay. Patrick, did you want to come up?
Hi, Patrick Ziske, Sylvan Township resident. This meeting has actually been a lot more subdued than I expected it to be. I thought there'd be screaming and shouting. I think a lot of good points have been made by people here. Some of them might be misunderstandings of the document, but a lot of them were straight on. I'm gonna kick it up a notch, a little bit higher with this stuff. Since I've been involved with the township, which has been a long time now, I've seen a lot of controversial issues about land use. This is a continuation of what we've seen. And I've always thought that in the long run, you don't get anywhere by fighting on these things, just by fighting them out all the time, because the next crew eventually is going to take power again, and they're going to undo what the other people did, and they're going to fight about it more. It's just going to keep on going. And I think about what would it take to reduce the amount of fighting and acrimony, even though there hasn't been so much evident here tonight. What would it take to reduce that? There has to be some kind of standard of fairness that everybody, or most people, can agree to, a fair play. You know, we have the desires of many people in the township to keep the township just as it is, or at least large parts of it. And on the other hand, we have the desires of property owners to actually own their property and do what they want with their property, which needs to be respected as well, because if the fighting doesn't happen here, it's going to end up happening in court somewhere, which is bad too. I see all these efforts to engineer the master plan in such a way that you get what you want at the end of it, not necessarily what's fair, but what somebody wants. And I want the same thing as most people in here, by the way. But can't it be that we judge proposals more according to their impact rather than engineering the master plan to get what we want? Like, if my neighbor is going to do something that actually impacts me, or let's say impacts Letts Creek, as one person said, for example, then why can't that be the standard of judgment? Why can't we have a multi-use district, for example, that allows only the activities that are judged not to be overly impactful for other people? Why can't that be the standard of measurement? Somebody mentioned, high density residential. Well, can that be evaluated according to actual impactful metrics, such as the amount of runoff that's going into Letts Creek and the amount of traffic that overloads the road? Can it be judged that way rather than, I don't want to see it, and 80% of the residents who responded said they don't want it? Is it really a situation where the residents of this township get to vote on what somebody else does with their property? If it is that way, I don't think it should be, but if it is that way, then have a real vote. Put it on the ballot. And that's not what the master plan is for. The master plan is supposed to be general guidance, but not a prescriptive thing where everybody says, this can happen with your property and it can't. And we're gonna make sure that the language of the master plan is set up just right so it does what I want. There has to be another standard of fairness. I think a lot of these comments were great. But when you go through the master plan here, I would like to urge you in the planning commission to look at each of those things under mixed use, especially because that's the most controversial one right now. And the mixed use for Pierce Road doesn't have to be the same as the mixed use for the M52 corridor, right? They don't have to be. Maybe one can be a little bit more restrictive as far as the scale or the impact of things, and the other one can be a little bit looser. Because as far as I know, there's no controversy about development on the M52 corridor. but there is on Pierce Road. They're not the same place. Maybe Pierce Road needs to be more flexible in a way, but still protect the legitimate rights of the residents. Not their desires, but their rights. It's important. Finally, I think I had one more thing to say. Oh, one more thing to say, and this is above the master plan, but this is what we do in the township when we pass any kind of ordinance or motion or anything that impacts land use. Think about whether what we're doing is incentivizing or disincentivizing a certain land use. We claim that we don't want to incentivize development. The first thing on top of my list, as mentioned by somebody else here, was going back to the 2008 master plan that said that the Pierce Road corridor was not meant for expansion of the water and sewer district. That's not what the water pipe was for. I'm paraphrasing. In that case, if you really don't want to encourage development on Pierce Road, number one thing to do is don't expand the water district there. On the other hand, on the M52 corridor, maybe you do expand it there because maybe we don't want to disincentivize development there. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Is there anyone else that would like to have some public comment? Yes, sir.
Roger Heyman. I live on Pierce Road. I think this area we're talking about on Pierce Road should be returned to agricultural, and I think we need to form a group that can find out what land conservancy programs are all about and how we can start a land conservancy program so that the person can still get the money out of their land that they want. I know Matt, when he was coming to us about being on the board, said he had some involvement and knows something about land conservancy, I think. Maybe not. I'm not trying to put him on the spot, but there are other townships around have land conservancy programs. So I think that might help solve some of these issues. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm Chris Scher. I'm a resident on McKinley. Mine's more a question than anything. My wife and I came here tonight wanting to understand more of what's going on in the township. In particular, how some of the land is being used. And I agree with a lot of the things I've heard. I appreciate hearing a lot of that. But there's one in particular I've been asking about for a while. My question is this planning on being adopted soon? Or is this is the plan that we're looking at here, any of that, what we have today, is there an opportunity? And I'll tell you, the reason I ask that is there's one parcel here that we've been asking about for literally years, actually. But especially in just the last 6 months or so, what's going on with that? What's happening with that? We're seeing survey markers on it. We're seeing things happening with it. We've got a new city manager in Chelsea that seems to have some ideas of what he wants to do. And I'm looking at this 12-acre parcel that is proposed to be medium density residential. And I wonder what that means. And I read in there that it's 4 homes per acre. That means they want to shoehorn 48 homes into a 12-acre parcel that's next to a bunch of 2-acre parcels with individual homes. If I'm understanding that correctly, I'm going to be here a lot more often until we figure out exactly what is going on with that, because I just heard 2 months ago that there can't be more than 2 houses on that piece of property. And I've also been hearing by the owners of it, they want to build a church on it. Where did this come from? I want to know that. That's my main thing right now. And I agree, we don't need to develop Pierce Road or any of this farmland.
Yeah, I suggest you talk with Mr. Pacheco about your concern about the property there, because I'm looking at the map. I can't really pinpoint exactly where you're talking about. This here.
That's right across from North Creek Elementary School. That's Letts Creek. You put
Okay.
48 homes in that piece of property right there. You got a big problem with Letts Creek, I would say. And this entire area is 2-acre parcels.
Yeah, and that's been mixed density for quite a while. Okay,
But
no, that's
the
fine.
Information I got earlier this year from this office was, it was no more than 2 homes. And they didn't even have enough frontage to divide it into that. There is one house sitting on it right now.
I suggest talk to Mr. Pacheco just to make sure we got all the facts straight. Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments before we close it? Okay, we're gonna close public comment. Unfinished business, I don't think we have any. We're gonna move into new business. Miss Sarah is here from Beckett and Radar. Would you like to share your thoughts from what you've heard so far? Sure, that'd be great.
talk to you. So this plan, the changes that were in it were based on, public input. They're based on conversations with your staff that you have here to try to work through what you have in your existing future land use map and then what you were looking at potential changes for that. So we do have to, and I mentioned this in my memo, recreate the future land use map. We don't have a digital version available with the right layers in it. So we started from scratch to reproduce it, but also a lot of the parcels have changed over time. They either get split or get added together. And so there may be some spots where, you see a little bit difference and it has to do with a parcel line. That's something that, Scott looked through the map and said, we need to change this and we need to update that. And can we make this adjustment? But also from the planning commission, that's what I need help from you as well to make sure that this is an accurate representation of what you'd like for your future land use map with the districts and locations for, where all the districts essentially are located on the new map. There's been a lot of talk about the mixed use districts. I know that was the one of two essentially things on the future land use map that we were tasked to look at. We were tasked to look at the mixed use district and the urban growth boundary area, if that should be expanded or not in there. So looking at the mixed use district and the language there, and that's on page 7 of 10 in the text of the master plan, trying to create something that is a little bit more mixed use, not so commercial heavy, something that would have some different opportunities in there for those properties. So since they already were future land used as mixed use, not pulling that all the way back, but looking at ways that we could make those areas more compatible with the adjacent agricultural property and residential uses. So you see where we removed the more intensive commercial operations or office/residential. The office/residential we removed because that's not very descriptive. I don't know what that is, office/residential uses, to try to help define it better for you. And make it more compatible with your residential. A big component of this and recommendation that you see in here is an update to your PUD language to help get that mixed use component for those mixed use districts on your future land use map. So I'm sure you've heard this before, as a part of the planning commission, you have your master plan, that's your policy, that's your future vision, and then you have your zoning ordinance, and that's how you make your future, how you make your master plan happen, right? So you can't have one without the other. For zoning, you're required to have the master plan so that you're developing per a plan. And so that's where that big recommendation is. So we need to go through this process on the master plan side so you can go and then look at your zoning ordinance and update your PUD section potentially to require more buffering, requiring these mixes of uses to help protect the neighboring properties that do abut the mixed use properties. What else did I want to mention here? This is the first time the planning commission's looking at it. We haven't talked about it, right? Last time I was here was for the public input session, the open house. And so everything else has been based either on, you know, what Carol or Scott have told us about what's happening and development that's happening in the community, trying to work with that and then also get you where you want to go. So I'm here to help you create this plan of what you're looking to do. This is our first crack at not making, I guess, major changes from your future land use map that you had before. And what I mean by that is not scrapping the whole future land use map and starting over. We're looking at kind of doing an amendment to portions of it. And the reason we're doing that is because this is not a full-blown rewrite of your master plan. You know, this was very narrowly focused on a couple of items. If you wanted to go through and kind of start from scratch with your future land use map, you should go through a much bigger process with your community engagement. You know, the survey was kind of narrowly focused on a couple of questions, didn't go into a deep dive of all topics that you would cover in a master plan. So tonight I'm looking for any feedback on this and, you know, to help you get there, I guess, essentially is what I'm here to do and provide that language. I appreciate the comments about if there's something that doesn't make sense, if there's a typo in it, you know, that's all the local knowledge that we need from you to be able to put into this document from the Planning Commission. And the only way we can talk to you about this is at a public meeting. So here we are to have that discussion about it. I don't know how you want to go through it. If it's kind of everybody talk about everything they have, if you want to walk through page by page, what?
So I have my list of questions. Tom, do you have your list of questions? Matt, do you have a list of questions? Courtney? Cliff?
A lot of my feedback has already been stated.
Andy, do you have a list of questions? No? Okay. So on section 2.4, do you have the map up? Because one thing I'll notice in your updated map, it doesn't have sections in it. So I had to pull the other one out. So it was a kind of a laborious task, right, to go through this. Okay. Mr. Cohn made remarks earlier about, so I look at that, the one area that's green, I think that's still wetlands in there, correct? If I look at the designation, it's got conservation, but it's basically a swamp in there. And it's the one block next to the freeway. I'm just right now, I want to focus on her map, but we can take a look at that if that does make sense. But you see what I'm talking about, Sarah?
Okay, nope, start in section 2.
Section 2.4, right next to the freeway. It's the little green block. You want to come here? This block right here.
Okay.
Okay. So the question is, does that really belong to be mixed use or just because of the wetlands it's a problem?
Well, that's what, so that hatching is all wetlands underneath, right? And then it's green. And so that was similar. There's some green here. But this was recreation conservation. And now it's open space ag.
Yeah, no, I'm just. Oh. Okay. I'm looking at the future land use map and I'm looking at the section 2.4 and it's not marked on the map itself. But it's right up next to 94 against the interchange. No, it's Sullivan Township. Along Lima Township, yeah.
So on the future land use, on the draft future land use map, it's where the 94 symbol
Right.
is on that green parcel between the pink and the gray.
Yeah, so let's investigate that, whether or not it makes sense to look it over, okay? And then the
So
other,
to change that to.
let's
conservation.
investigate it, just, I
Okay.
think we got maps here now to look at, and it's
Okay.
probably worth a look, right?
Okay.
And then this property here, this is Consumers Energy property. Why don't we just leave that agricultural?
Okay, let me make a note. Okay, what else?
Hmm. Okay, section 1.1. This is Westchester Hills. This is changed from high density from medium density.
Mhm.
It's already developed.
Okay. What do
what-
you call
why-
it? Medium or
Yeah.
high?
Hmm?
What is it?
It's Westchester Farms. It's already developed. Why would we change the zoning?
That was, what color? You want to leave it medium orange instead of brown?
It's under court orders.
Okay.
It's already there, so I say we leave that as is. Okay. Um, the next one is section 1.0. And this is the Robin Hills Farms. That's got a future land use of mixed use. I think we've heard, and I have shared the similar comments of the rest of some of the other township residents that we should leave this agriculture for future land use until we get a better feel for how Robin Hills turns out, because if we turn this loose now, we don't know what comes of it. So,
So it's currently future land use as low density. You want to go down all the way to ag from,
low density. And while I'm thinking about it, I think low density residential causes confusion for people. I think if we start calling it rural residential, it's probably a little more appropriate. Yeah, because I think that helps paint the real picture, right? It's rural, it's not just for my own sake. So I'd like to see that change put in place.
can you state that again, what you'd like it to be called?
Instead of low density residential, can we call it rural residential? Rural residential? Yeah.
Sounds better.
Yeah, it sounds better. Mm. I don't see a rural residential
Open space.
namespace.
Slash. rural. The light green one.
Then to take it out of the OAR and just call it low density resident. I mean, we can make let's take a look at, maybe talk with Scott, see what makes the most sense, but. I think we've already talked about Pierce Road, section 14. Yeah, so the boundaries had changed in section 14. This is what it looked like. And so now so I'm a little confused as to what you were trying to do here. Because there's wetlands mixed in here, right?
Yeah, all of this hatched is wetlands
Right.
underneath it. So, and that's part of our problem in recreating the map, as you'll see on the existing future land use. You know, up here, all of these are kind of squiggly and we don't know how that layer was created to create that. So we attempted to do that by putting wetland, it's representing wetlands. This is your current wetland layer that hatched over it to try to do that, but I can't exactly duplicate this map because we don't know whoever made this.
So they had a better tool than you?
No, I don't know what they picked to use it, and I don't know what their underlying layer was.
Interesting.
You know, I can assume it's somehow related to wetlands, but there's no description of what that layer is. We don't have that layer to perfectly duplicate it.
Okay.
But that area that you're talking about, I believe that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sandy, Scott talked about that area.
Okay, page 1, the mixed use land category does include industrial uses. It's on page 48. The intent of the mixed use designates provide areas where a mix of commercial office, industrial, high density the land uses are available. I do agree the PUD regulations need to be updated. So those are some comments from page 1.
And will you be able, can I take that copy of your comments to be able to put?
I'll email these to you if you if you agree to respond to my emails.
Okay.
Because I've sent you 2 in the past and you've never responded, so. Yeah. So. Page 2, future land use bullet point number 2. Suggested to be low density residential recreation conservation. So. Once again, this is tied in with the PUD comments. So I'll email these to you so you can get a better feel for it. On page 2, though, one of the questions that came up, where did all this ADU stuff come up that got added in here? I mean, none of us on the planning commission talked about it. We never gave you direction to add it in. So where did you get that direction, number 1? And number 2, what are the pros and the cons of adding it?
I mean, accessory dwelling units are a form of, housing opportunities that you can add into your regulations. This is something, in talking with staff to add that use in so that it brought into your zoning ordinance, maybe in the future.
So this was a staff recommendation to add this? And which staff member recommended it?
It was in conversations with Carol and Scott. I mean,
Okay.
Scott's read through this too, because that's my first line is through staff. Because they're the ones that push it all down to you. So if you don't want,
No, I
Accessory
think we should talk about it. I mean,
Since we've not talked about it,
right. I don't know. I mean, I've
what
gotten
exactly?
except accessory. I mean, some people think them as like granny caves or houses, you bring something on, or it's an accessory dwelling unit.
So you can live in it.
Yeah,
This isn't a big shed.
yeah, it's basically a living quarters, but from what I've read, there's some cities now that are allowing these ADUs, but they're actually turning into commercial, like Little Grandma's Coffee Shop and bake shops. And so there's a lot of things to think about with it.
We've had a number of people at meetings who have expressed interest in an accessory dwelling unit because they want to bring their parents
Right.
closer to them. And also, it's not just your parents, it's also your children who
Yeah.
are struggling to find someplace to live.
Yeah.
and this puts this in here, but you still have to put it in your zoning ordinance. And that's when you'll have the discussion about how big they are, where they can be located. If they need to be owner occupied, if you can rent them, those are all that part of the zoning discussion. For that. So just because they're here doesn't mean they necessarily come over, you still have that discussion.
No,
At the same
understand,
time,
yeah.
If you're feeling it's a little premature to put it in here, we can pull it out.
Yeah, I just hadn't really personally spent much time thinking about the pros and the cons of it, so.
Well, let's leave it in so we can talk about it.
I'm not, as soon as you leave it in, though, you're kind of stuck with it, right?
It is
So.
one of those things, like if we haven't heard from the community that they want it in there,
Right.
do we put it in there? And if you're the community, that's fine, and then we can talk about it, but.
Yeah,
So how would you like to move forward with that?
We already have in there.
right.
Well, I would like to be able to discuss it.
No, that's what we're talking about right
Okay.
now, right? So. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not done with it. So maybe maybe the thing to do is we give our feedback tonight, but we need to have more conversations about it. I hate to do something rash. I mean, because I think it's important to have kind of a scorecard, right? Pros and the cons. And I think back to your point, Cindy, we should talk about it, right? So let's leave it there for now, but with the understanding that it's not something that may make the final draft. Is that reasonable? Okay. Is everyone comfortable with that approach? Okay.
I'm fine with that.
All right. Page 3. Hmm. I'm gonna open up public comment for the gentleman who has his hands raised. Jim, if you'd like to come up and make a statement, go ahead.
How about, where do we go from here? This not being the final.
No, there'll be more hearings and this is really as Sarah said, this is our first time to get feedback back and forth, right? So, and hear from the public, so. Yeah. I'm gonna close public hearing again. So that page 3, the primary one I had there was the public usage. Page 4.
So if you, I'm not sure which packet you got, but in the one that we have, there's 6 steps. And we're on step 1. Oh, no.
I think under the page 4, it's in the most compatible zoning districts. I think the wording needs to state something, when an area is proposed to be rezoned to an LR/a rural residential from AG, there are regulations in place to allow the township board to determine if the proposed zoning is appropriate. This determination is based on items such as existing lot sizes in the area, if the roadways are paved, and if they have direct access to collectors. Okay,
Do you have collectors in your zoning ordinance?
believe we do, yes.
I can take a look, but
Yep. This one to help me out, it says most compatible zoning districts for low density residential. I got here, it says just removing the new comments, no, medium density, this from a land use perspective. Where on the map is the urban service boundary immediately west of Chelsea located? It was noted in here.
On page 4. The highlighted section.
oh, incorporates.
Yes, under medium density residential land use. Areas in the urban service boundary immediately west of the city of Chelsea,
You know,
right?
we updated that and didn't update the text. It's referring to this. This medium density,
Mm-hmm.
but then later on, we updated this. So depending on if you,
Well, we're not changing that because it's under
Right,
court
so-
order, right? So.
so then this statement will work for you. Cause this will be medium density.
Okay, I got you.
West of the.
Yep. All right. Page 5. Innovative housing projects. Where did that come from?
Back on page 5. Oh, as far as this, the footnote about it?
The footnote and the new line, right? Innovative housing projects.
The term in general.
All
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why we try to define it, because you're looking at, I mean, you could say they're non-traditional housing projects, you know, and non-traditional being your large lot, single family, or just an alternative way to develop the property where you have this cottage housing, elderly housing, PUDs, live work, so you can call them whatever you'd like, but it's just not your kind of cookie cutter, single family.
I think we need to include this conversation along with the accessory dwelling units, because this is not something I'm comfortable with.
We just.
Right. Right. This is a bit of Pandora's box here, right? You're right. Cliff, any thoughts on it?
I'll save my comments.
Okay.
when you're done.
Page 6, general commercial land use on Brown Drive. I think there's a map problem here. We've got, the trailer, not trailer, storage place, then there's a body shop and a existing, landscape company. That are at general commercial. And somehow they fell off here, it looks like, in this area up here. So that's gonna have to be looked at.
You want to make that red then?
Well, it's general commercial. It's off Brown Drive. Yeah. It should be general commercial. Yeah,
So red,
yeah.
but it's not,
Well,
it's not currently red on
it's-
this,
Yeah,
or-
it's adjacent. Yes, this is the 2017, right?
Right.
All right. And if you look over here and update a map, it's
So
smaller.
that little bit north part there.
Yep. So I would get with Scott or someone and they can show you on the map as to where it belongs. I think the only comment I had on 7 was the comments about the PUD. You don't disagree with that? I had no comments on page 8. Page 9. So the zoning district that would be most compatible with the medium density residential future land use district should be created to provide development options consistent. But I believe we have one. Could you just explain a little bit more on that one?
Sure, so my understanding is that you don't have a good district currently on your zoning map and in your zoning ordinance that corresponds with the medium density that's currently on your future land use map, and that would be here. So needing to create that new district so that you can get some of those uses and development like medium density.
So I see medium density right here. So that's where I got confused, right?
Yeah, so it's on that map, but the zoning map
Oh, the zoning map.
doesn't have, I don't. Yeah, your zoning map has. Oh. Has, low density and single family residential, but there's no like medium density on the zoning map. So how are you moving that medium density future land use district forward if you don't have anything in your zoning ordinance that has those same regulations?
Hmm.
And so that's a suggestion. I don't know if that's been a struggle for you, working through the ordinance and approving developments in the past. That's an observation of ours that there seems to just be a missing district.
Okay.
So that would be something you'd have to work on in the future.
So you're simply just suggesting realigning the zoning ordinance to the map.
Right.
Got
To
it.
the future land use map.
Got it.
Okay. So those were all the comments I had at this point.
I would say from, in addition to the things you've noted, Mike, and that's been articulated here today. I'm concerned with the data we used to feed the updates. 10.5%, I would not, for the survey example, I would not argue would be a statistically significant amount. That would be closer than, I would expect 25% to get statistically significant within that 95% confidence interval. And basically what we're saying here is the updates that are being fed into the plan, 90% of the community is being left out of that. So I don't know if we've missed folks and how we've outreached. We need to go back to the drawing board on getting more feedback, but I have concerns with moving forward when 90% of people in the community we haven't heard from. And we may not hear from some people, right? That's just realistic part of the process, but 10.5%, our highest rate of engagement, that's a concern for me.
Okay. Any other comments? No? Mr. Cohen, how about you? Anything you want to add? No. Tom? Courtney? You're okay. Sandy, any thoughts from your side? You're good? Okay. Well, now bad news, Sarah. So I'd sent you a couple of emails, right? And specifically I was talking about in regards to PA 433 or 233. And this is how we handle the solar and business going forward, right? And what I wanted to do is understand where all the high power tension lines in the township are currently being mapped so that we can look at potentially creating an overlay district within those areas that would be adjacent to the existing high power tension lines. Because the state's going to force solar and this alternative energy down to us, right? And we also need to update our a new zoning ordinance or to deal with PA 233. And I think our master plan update needs to have some reflection to that. And I'm not sure if we're going to get large solar farms out here, but I think we're going to be primed for the alternative storage locations, right? Which is probably, and they're going to get forced on us. It's pretty clear, but there's things that we can do to at least push that development potentially into certain areas that's attractive for both the farmers in this case, because they get to keep their land, but they also get a chance to make money off of it, right? And that it doesn't require police, sewers, and more stools, for lack of a better word. So that was one point I wanted to bring up, and I sent you 2 emails on it, specifically that subject, right? I never heard a word from him. Okay.
So I don't remember seeing it, so I haven't.
Yes, well, that's why I sent the second one, right?
Well, has the planning commission talked about that and locations that you'd like to see some of those things?
High level, this is part of the areas that we want to explore more, right? And that was part of the reason for reaching out to say, can we talk about how we would do this in the overlay district potentially, right?
So there was a learning session. Scott sent all that info to everybody to when they're talking about what we as a township can do in order to protect ourselves so we don't, but certainly knowing, and I think I gave you the email address of this website that shows where the tension wires are. I couldn't get it to work for me. I think people feel a lot more comfortable if we know that.
Right. Yeah, I did not see that, unfortunately, so.
It didn't work for me.
But I have really bad internet.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have no excuse.
You know, so in case we got to get through this, how we handle this alternative energy business, right? So then we need to address that.
We look at what they're doing.
Potentially, I mean, I sat through that other presentation. There's a lot of different couple of different twists you can take on that. So.
So do you want to set up a time to talk about that? Do you want to do it, with you and myself and maybe Scott and do that, or?
Well, I'm thinking, I got a couple of motions I'm going to make here, and I'll
Okay.
let the board vote on to see how they want to move. Okay. But the other thing is that there's been a lot of this talk about the properties north of I-94 and the low density, or what we're calling rural residential. And what I'd like to do is get a map of what the potential is for everything north of 94. Or I should say north of Kavanaugh Lake Road. So this is the motion, so I'm gonna just let you guys listen to it. Yeah. The Plan Commission recommends the Township Board approve the creation of a map of the lots 2 acres and greater and those that are 2 unders north of Kavanaugh Lake Road to assist in future planning efforts. So we can actually say, what is this, what are we really looking at out there, right? This from as we look at from a planning perspective. So that's one of the motions. And if you'd like, I can make it a formal motion. Yeah, I think we just do them step by step. So I'm gonna make a motion that we will request the Township Board approve the creation of the map of the lots 2 acres and greater and those that are 2 unders, 2 acres and under north of Kavanaugh Lake Road to assist in future planning efforts. Supported by Tom. Sandy, you in favor? Roll call. So we get a better feel for what's really going to be a rural residential area and what lots are really developable in those areas. It'll help us when we start looking at future projects, right? Things that come along. You have a better feel for what the neighborhood looks like and where the layouts are currently out there. So that's the intent of it. It's not to be overly intrusive, but it's more to be of a planning aid for us. Okay, or whoever, yeah. Cliff, what do you think?
Yeah, as long as it's instructive and not, contrary or.
No, it's just,
That's
it
fine.
just says, what do we got?
Yeah.
Right, and then what's already been cut up. So when we look at it in the future, we know it's out there.
Okay.
Or do you in favor? Favor, Tom? Yeah. But the motion passes.
Did we ever get a second on that?
I think Tom did.
Did he? Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, the second one, this is to do with the PA 233 activities. So I'll read it out here and we can talk about it. It says the Plan Commission recommends the Township Board approve funding to contract with competent third-party resources to develop an alternative energy ordinance to address PA 233, referencing alternative energy systems, wind and solar installations. This recommendation also includes development of an overlay district adjacent to the existing high-powered transmission facilities within the township as potentially suitable alternative energy land uses. So we had all that stuff we did with Sarah, right? No, I'll give it to you. Right? Yeah, so yeah, we went through all that solar activity with Sarah, or not Sarah, but the lady from Rebecca. And it really went nowhere, right? But now we're in a position with the state laws that have changed and all the other things come out, we really can't spend any more. We have to do something, right? But we need to get someone that really understands the business to help us write that. And I don't think Mr. Thal's the right guy at this particular juncture, based upon his, from what Rebecca did last night. Of course, things have changed. I know sitting through that seminar the last day, there's definitely people out there that have a better feel for it. So I'd like to make her to get funding and get this thing moving. So from the township board, approves the money that we can have people go out and really help us write this ordinance. That's constructive and effective.
The presenters of that program, there is help that we.
I know there is, but after hearing them, I know there's people out there. We just they haven't been in front of us. Right.
Doesn't actually become effective until.
Right, which gives us 2 months.
I know from my perspective, I think we need to be very clear about what we mean when we say competent third-party resource. Because are we just talking a consultant? Because I think talking about getting assistance from somebody other than the township's attorney, I think is a much bigger conversation. personally. So I think we need to be very clear about what we're motioning for.
So competent is the idea is that we need to get someone that, my interpretation of competent is someone that's, capable of handling this in light of the legislative actions that have occurred in the recent past.
So are you saying someone, a consultant to come in and help draft?
I'm not.
Both language?
It could be a consultant. I mean, we're asking the board to look at this, right? I don't think I'm no expert on it, right? But there's got to be people out there that do it. And that's the reason of putting competent in there, is that, make sure we get the right resources. Yeah. I mean, I can take the word out.
Yeah, 'cause I think that just gets into a gray area. I don't know that we want to be in, right? I mean, presumably, we're doing our due diligence when we're hiring consultants. We're doing our due diligence.
No, that's fine. I can take it out.
Yeah, township attorney, yeah.
I have no problem taking words out. Saying it so from high level, is that something you'd be supportive?
Say it again.
Is that something you'd be supportive? Asking the township board to go out and rehire to get someone to help us with the alternative energy ordinance. Okay.
Absolutely.
Cliff, you would?
Yeah, stated that way, I could support that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Word.
I support.
Tom? Okay. Okay. You want me to reread this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the planning commission recommends the township board approve funding to contract with third-party resources to develop an alternative energy ordinance to address PA 233, referencing alternative energy storage systems, wind and solar installations. This recommendation also includes development of an overlay district adjacent to the existing high-power transmission facilities within the township as potentially suitable alternative energy land uses. You know. And I got one more motion I want to make. You know when you're ready. I guess all in favor, say aye. We got,
Aye.
all right, so the motion passes. Okay. Now, the last one is in regards to continuing with Beckett and Radar. I've not been happy with your performance, to be honest with you. I mean, I spent a lot of time going through here making corrections. People have pointed out, spelling errors, there's been a lack of communication. I was kind of surprised to see there's been 300 email communication between you and staff. I've never been included on one of them, right? So I'm not thrilled about that. I'm not sure how the rest of the board members feel. Courtney, Tom? Yeah. I don't know. People. Other. Yeah. With it. I don't know. But I think we need to regroup in the whole thing. Yeah, I do too. Where are you at, Courtney? Same way?
I do think we need to regroup. There have been some big changes and this has been a 10-month process. And so
Right.
some of it, it's in different people's control with different influences, but it's something we need to look at and reanalyze.
Okay. You're pretty new, so we'll put you on the spot. Sandy, your thoughts?
I think things really went off the track when we changed staff. And poor Scott steps into a lot of things going on at the same time, and I think it was hard for him to step in and immediately take over what somebody else had been working on. And so we're
Mhm.
playing catch up from that.
Okay. Yeah, 300, that's a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's crucial to keep the planning commission chair involved. And I mean, I know we're still fairly early in the process, but I would have expected a little more polished draft. And obviously not a final draft, there's still work to be done, but for this to be our first draft that we're commenting on with the inconsistencies and the errors, that's a big pill, I think.
Yeah,
Big pill to swallow.
yeah, I agree. So I'm gonna make a motion, so the planning commission recommends the township board determine if it's in the best interest of the township to continue procurement of master plan update services from Beckon and Radar due to communication and work product quality concerns. I'll leave it up to the township board to decide how they would like to move forward, but I think it's a kind of a joint decision. Supported by Tom. Sandy? Yep. Planning Commission recommends the township board determine if it's in the best interest of the township to continue procurement of master plan update services from Beckett and Radar due to communication and work product quality concerns. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
Courtney?
Agree.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so motion seconded by Tom. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. So, those were all my notes and comments for tonight. And so Sarah, we'll let the township board decide, what path they want to go forward. We're just a recommendation body. But there's, a lot of frustration on our part. We spent a lot of time reading this and another draft and reading this and, I've got a full-time job too, so takes a lot of effort, so. Is there any other comments or concerns from the planning commission members? Sandy, anything from your side? You're good, Cliff? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second by Tom. Meeting is canceled or completed. Thank you. Yes.